Can you do me a favor? Can you look in the camera and say like, comment, and subscribe?
Like, comment.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. So to my grandson's channel. Say like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
You heard it. Okay, so today I have my friend and old colleague, Laura McLeod. She's currently the Global Wellbeing Lead at GE Healthcare. Laura, thank you for doing this today. I'm excited to have you on. Before we get started, if you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do today, that would be great.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me on. Happy to be here. So, as Anthony said, I'm currently the Global Wellbeing Lead at GE Healthcare. My role is responsible for setting up the enterprise-wide strategy on employee well-being. That includes things like physical well-being, mental well-being, emotional, social, kind of like those 4 components of well-being. So what I do is I take kind of a scan, look at the data we have available, do a bit of like a needs analysis of kind of what are the biggest areas of opportunity, where are employees struggling, where are we seeing pockets of kind of concentrated issues going on, and put together a strategy to address, ultimately help employees feel better in their work so that they're more productive, they're thriving both at work and at home. And I'm currently a team of 1, which has been fun and challenging at the same time, relying a lot on kind of partners and stakeholders to kind of help move this along.
Very nice. So I know you and I go back a little bit, but just for the sake of the conversation, I am always curious around kind of your career journey and how you got started in this field. If I remember correctly, you were in the Future Leaders program at GSK, right?
Yeah. And if we go back before that, so I had gone to school for public health. So I had kind of thought of myself as going into more of like the public sector.
Okay.
So government, maybe hospital, nonprofit, that's kind of where my focus was. I remember I was working in research at Drexel, kind of in post-graduation, pre-career stuff. And I had a friend there who mentioned something about GSK kind of in passing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I like see the building downtown. Let me like scope out. At that point, I was pretty open to kind of where my career could take me. And I saw that they had a posting for, it was Environment, Health, and Safety Future Leaders Program. And there was one little bullet in that description that mentioned public health. And I was like, okay, well, I'll give this a try. This seems, I don't know if it's aligns, but it says public health. So what then got me really interested in GSK and that program at the time was the program that we had collaborated on, Partnership for Prevention. So at that time, it was just kicking off at GSK. And what that highlighted for me was kind of the power of private industry in being able to tackle population health issues. So the ability for private enterprise in terms of vaccination, health access, preventative health care, that all kind of touched my heart in the public health space, and seeing that kind of come alive in the private sector through the GSK, employee health program. That's what really kind of drew me in, got me really interested, and kind of put me on this path to corporate health and well-being, where I maybe wouldn't have explored this, on my own, but seeing that kind of program and being such a powerful example of how to touch so many people's lives. So I entered GSK through the EHS, Environment, Health, and Safety Future Leader program. And through there, I kind of knew my focus was on health and well-being. So I got exposed to the safety element, the environment element, but I knew that health was kind of my focus area, my passion. So that's kind of where I directed my efforts. So then after that program, I ended up in the GSK Health, and at the time it was called Employee Health and Well-being function. And through that, got to do a lot of different work on all the programs that they had going on. So they had resilience programs, they had employee assistance programs, they had obviously Partnership for Prevention. mindfulness. They did things like digital health and well-being platforming. So I think GSK, that opportunity exposed me to so
Hmm.
many different, because it was such a rich offering that they had in the employee health and well-being space. I got to see kind of so many different elements of how you make things, operationalized and roll things out, evaluate it. So was there for about 9 years. Yeah. And then I actually, Anthony, you were the one who sent me the job posting at Vanguard. So I had done kind of 8 years of this, more or less like this, the same thing, doing kind of enterprise-wide health and well-being, mental health. And then this role was a little bit of a pivot from that. It was global well-being, but also benefits. So it was actually a more heavily benefits role. And I thought that that was interesting because it could kind of expand what I'd been doing, move more into
Hmm.
the benefit space, give me a bit more exposure, and also kind of challenge me in a different way. Because I think if you're at the same thing, you're at the same role years and years and years, you can get a bit stagnant and you can
Yeah.
get a
Yep.
bit comfortable. So I feel like that role challenged me to use my brain in a bit of a different way, exposed me to like the financial components of, setting up benefits programs, and learned a lot more about the US health and welfare space. So I enjoyed my time there. I feel like I learned a lot. And then this role came up like about 2 years into the Vanguard role. And this role in particular kind of excited me because it was building something from the ground up. So whereas GSK, I was really part of a team, kind of part of an established group that had
Hmm.
kind of a set strategy, an agenda. This opportunity at GE Healthcare was basically a blank slate where I could kind of come in and look at the landscape and decide kind of where I wanted the strategy to go. So that's
That's
kind
really
of how I
cool.
ended up here.
Yeah, that's cool. So I remember we had a lot of MPHs come through.
At
It was,
GSK, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it was cool. The structure that we had, being partnering so close with EHS, and the structure that they had with benefits, EHS, well-being, meant that we collaborated across those spaces, and we all had our different strengths. And I think that the fact that we all collaborated on these things is what made some of them so successful. I remember towards the end of my time at GSK, when they restructured everything, you and I ended up being on the same team, and there was a project that I was really passionate about with the captive, where we were calling it targeted intervention. And we were looking at ways to address our highest claims drivers, and you bring a perspective to that I don't have. Like, I can help develop insurance programs, but having your view there was huge. That was a really cool program. And I also remember you and I were always talking about kind of what's next. You speak about that comfort thing. GSK was cool. I spent just a tiny bit longer there. I think I was there for a little over 10 years. But then when this opportunity came up and I left, it was one of those things where stepping outside of our comfort zone, and you had some of the same observations that I did. And I was like, you just got to do, if it's something that excites you, just do it. And I'm glad that it ended up working out.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is like it feels a bit scary to leave something that's like so has been very rewarding, and
Yes.
everybody, you know how things work. And it is a little, that first jump is a little scary, but then I've learned it kind of gives you confidence in a sense
Yeah.
that like, okay, I did this one time. If I see another opportunity that's kind of, piques my curiosity, or I think it's going to be like a good development role for me, you have a bit more confidence under your belt, like to pursue those things.
Yeah.
And so I do think making that move, and that's what they say too, switching companies helps not only salary wise, but like that's how you eventually like move up
Yeah.
is kind of by hopping around. And then you can always, I know at GSK too, people talk about boomeranging back in. So you can also, approach it that way to get a bit more experience. And then if you
And
reflect
different
back,
perspective. Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
that,
Because,
yeah, it makes it more valuable than if you do
yes.
decide to come back in.
Yeah, because then you bring something, a different set of thinking, or something that people hadn't potentially considered before, that you can maybe try to refresh things a bit, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a perspective that you could never get by staying at the same company, for 30 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, and I always butcher this, but I'll get the gist of it, is growth starts at the edge of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's sometimes you don't recognize that that you're not at the edge anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take a leap like that, then you realize I agree with you. You realize you're like, this move isn't as scary as I thought. And I'm glad I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Another quote that I always, it's easier to say than actually do in the moment is you never want to leave the party. You never want to be the last to leave the party, and you always want to leave the party when you're having fun. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't regret anything about my time at GSK, but I'm glad I left when I did.
Right. And you always want to be looking when you're not in a place of like desperation too, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah,
So
that's what I mean by the party thing.
coming
Yeah.
from a place of kind of like, okay, things are good. I'm in like a kind of that abundant mindset, if you will. That usually leads to like a better outcome as opposed to
Yes.
like scrambling for like whatever I can
Yeah,
find.
you're moving for the right reasons instead
Yes.
of yeah,
Yeah, you're running towards something, not away from something. I've heard that
absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
a good mindset
That
to
is a
keep
good
as
one.
well.
Yeah. Um all right, that's great. So the journey makes sense. I love the tie-in, and I completely agree with you. I was similar with my kind of career goals. When I first started, I had no idea that I didn't know what it would be like to work for large multinationals. I thought I was going to work for a local healthcare system. That was
Mm-hmm.
my goal. But then you're right. As soon as my last internship was at GSK, and seeing the impact that you can make there was really cool, and think about how rewarding that career could be. And so I'm glad I fell into where I fell into. So,
Yeah.
okay. So love it. What would you say, as someone who is unfamiliar with the well-being side of things, what would be something that's surprising to someone from the outside looking in?
Yeah, so I think maybe surprising is that, like you had mentioned earlier, it's very cross collaborative. So, like, people from many different backgrounds can get into this space. It doesn't just have to be like, physician or a nurse or like a health researcher, but like you said, finance backgrounds actually helps a lot because when you're proposing, trying to secure funding for things like well-being or benefits, you do need that financial background to kind of show why are we proposing this investment? What are we expecting to get out of this? Managing budgets, things like that. And so that's kind of the surprising part of this is how much you actually have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, where you have to have a bit of that business acumen, financial acumen, communication. A lot of it's a lot of stakeholder management. It's a lot of how do we communicate this out to employees. So you actually need some of that marketing side to things and how do you get your message out so it's clear. So it becomes very much you have to get good at a lot of different skills. So it's not a one size fits all for this type of role. I'd say and people that enter the benefit space too, I think come from so many different backgrounds because you need kind of that breadth of ability to handle people, to make a business case, to get something off the ground, to kind of manage day-to-day operations, putting fires out, and then also evaluating, is this what we're rolling out? Is this strategy actually achieving what we intended it to achieve? And
Yep.
can you prove that? And can you prove that to senior management and executives? So learning how to speak that language too of senior leaders and executives is part of this role as well. So, I think the surprising thing is how much of a breadth of experience and skills that someone could bring into this role. And it's not a one size fits all. I've worked with many colleagues from different companies that actually have very different backgrounds and they end up in the well-being space. Some people are like a nutritionist or a fitness certification, but yeah, other people are accountants, are
Yeah.
business majors, yeah, doctors, physicians, but also communication people, marketing. So yeah, that's what I would say, I guess, is surprising. And something that surprised me as well is that I couldn't just rely on like the skills that I had in like population health and kind of understanding risk management, but I had to get better at things like finance and marketing in order to kind of keep progressing in this space.
Yeah, I think that's really great insight. I think one thing that people forget and that I always try to remember is that at the end of the day, we are a support function still. So what you talked about is we can be very steadfast on, like, we know our stuff, we want to deliver it the way that we do, but ultimately we're supporting the business. And so if you can't articulate the strategy or the end goal, as you said, if this is going to achieve what we intended to achieve, then you're probably in the wrong space. You're not going to be able to get the funding that you need. You're not going to be able to achieve these things. So I completely agree with you. Donna did a really good job too. I just interviewed Donna from
Yeah.
GSK too, and she talked about having to have that business acumen. And
Yeah.
I think that goes across the board for all support functions, right?
Yeah, you're ultimately solving a business problem, right? So the
Yes.
business problem is how do we keep our people well so that they feel, when they come to work, it's a place where they feel like they can thrive and do good work. So that is really the business problem that we're solving for.
Yeah.
So it comes with, how do you, get that funding, get that buy-in, get that agreement that what you're proposing is going to solve this business problem that executives have.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so that leads me to the namesake of this. So if I knew then what I know now, would I approach things differently? And the way I like to frame the question is there a piece of advice that you wish you had earlier on in your career in life, or that you would share with your younger self, or that you would potentially share with someone who's looking to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I would say stay open, follow your curiosity. So stay open in the sense of, I think I came in sometimes a bit rigid and like I can only do this kind of role and I'm only going to be happy if I'm in this role and doing this kind of work. And I think that that's, as you do more and work with different people, you learn through experience. So I think it is very much staying open to kind of experiences that come up, and don't kind of discount something just because on paper, maybe that doesn't look exactly like what I had in my mind. But I found that the opportunities that have come up where I was like, this is real, they have paid off, years down the road. Like learning those skills that I did in that kind of role or position that I was in did years later I can pull something through. Oh yeah, in that role I had where I was looking at that kind of data set, I do remember. So never discount kind of anything, any opportunity that you have. It's always like serves a purpose for learning. And then I would say too is that your journey is your journey. So don't compare yourself to other people who aren't on your journey. So I think I did when I was younger, I would compare a lot. These people are moving so fast. I'm here. What's wrong that I can't? And that mindset kind of limits you in a way to what you and your path, like you'll eventually get to where you're supposed to be. It's kind of trusting a bit in yourself, trusting a bit in your own journey, and not getting into the compare and despair is what I call it.
That's really great advice.
Yeah, and I think getting out of the mindset that everybody has to have the same kind of fast pace, like move up, move up, move up, move up. Because that's not realistic, and that's not the case for everybody. And I think trying to go up so fast, you do, like I said, you miss out on some of those like really valuable learnings that you get from jobs or positions that you didn't really think would have been, a good fit for you. And I found it's kind of getting rid of the noise too, of like, I trust, what I'm doing is right for me, and whatever is to come up next, like my future self will know, when it's time for the next thing or the next push or the next growth, and trying not to be and do what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's fantastic advice. That's the comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. I think that there's a difference between being open and sharing things with your peers and people that you trust, and like benchmarking off of things and learning from people. But I agree with you. The second you start to say, well, why did that person get it and not me? You're already in a bad spot.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that I try to do is be happy for people who get into positions that you would like to be in, or are moving at a pace that you would like to move, and then try to learn from those individuals too. Your advice, I think, is spot on, because anytime that I try to, I find myself getting in that mindset. I just try to focus on the positive things of where I am, and it always puts me in a better place, I think.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like focus on your strengths, right? And not force something just because other
Yes.
people happen to be good at it. I must be good at this too.
Yeah.
I think it's like it's enhancing kind of your built-in strengths that you
Hmm.
have, and recognizing that those are unique to you, and how can you just kind of accelerate that a bit, and as opposed to like have to fit myself into this mold over here because that worked for them and I want to be
Yes.
that person. But it's like,
Agree.
no, you've got your own unique set of kind of makeup that is valuable, and it's just how do you kind of package what you already have, right? In a
Yes.
way,
Agree.
yeah. So I think that that's a bit too. I think what you said about your voice, that was another thing that came to mind. I think when you're starting out early in your career, I know I would hold back a bit because I was like, well, surely these people know, way more than me. They've been here longer. I'm probably going to say something that's not correct. So that finding your voice too, I think comes a bit with maturity, comes with experience. But that's another learning I would give my younger self was don't be afraid to like use your voice. It's always say this, but you're hired for a reason, you're here for a reason. So even if you're a junior person, you have a thought, you have an idea, like don't be afraid to showcase it or share it. It's always valuable, I think, to the team. And I would my younger self, I would tell my younger self to speak up a bit more and don't be afraid that you just because you're younger, you're junior, you don't know and your voice doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with you. You're there for you have a seat at the table for a reason, and your insights matter. You
Hmm.
may bring a different perspective that people who've been doing it for a while wouldn't consider. And absolutely, I completely agree. All right, fantastic advice. Thank you for sharing. Um, what's next for you? What are your career goals, aspirations, personally, professionally, whatever you want to share?
Yeah. So I'm coming at this with like an open-mindedness and kind of a curiosity lens. So, I look for things that kind of pique my curiosity. That age-old question of like, what's giving you energy or what is kind of pulling you in, and that I'm kind of open to that and looking for like that kind of inspiration for what's next. For me, what I've learned is I really enjoy working with people and being collaborative and working in like an in-person space. So, currently I'm remote, but I've learned through by doing is that I actually think I thrive better when I'm working in amongst a group of people in person. So I'm looking for ways and opportunities that I can kind of get out more, whether that's like collaborative workspace or meeting up with folks for like a coffee chat. But yeah, I think I see myself definitely in the HR space, well-being if it happens to be, but I'm also, I enjoyed my time in benefits. I think there's other interesting parts of HR, talent management, change management, things like that, that I could also see myself doing in the future. So I'm staying open to the opportunities and kind of following where my curiosity takes me.
I love that. I had someone that I met at Microsoft. We don't work together often, but I got to partner with them during Microsoft's charitable giving month, and she said she follows her warmth, which I really
Love
like.
that. I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah.
And
So
it's a little woo woo, but I think it works because you're like,
yeah, the quote
again, you're
was follow the
trusting
warmth.
yourself.
Yeah,
Like you have like some inner wisdom there to like follow and trust that.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's going to bring you more fulfillment than trying to like slam some job that, you
yeah.
know, it feels like you should be doing this, but actually it's maybe not. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Before we go, is there anything else you want to share or plug?
Let's see. I don't I don't think so. If anybody, I'm open to coffee chats. If anybody wants to meet and talk and collaborate, like I said, I love meeting people. I love talking about this. I love connecting. So those are the kind of opportunities that I'm looking for, Philadelphia area specifically, but virtually can be anywhere. How about you? What's next, or what are you kind of envisioning for yourself
For this? Or for me?
for career, for the next, 5 years? What are you?
You're the second person in the past couple of recordings that I've done to try to turn it to me.
Yeah.
I'll give you the same answer. So I'm not evading this. I've had feedback a bunch too that are you going to do an episode for yourself? My goal for this originally was to showcase people, like my friends, my colleagues, to give an opportunity for people who don't often. I want to say this without saying it nicely, without being. Sometimes you go to conferences, and especially in our space or in benefits or whatever, you see the same people say the same stuff over and over again. And I know, like with working with you, and I've met a lot of people that have amazing insights who don't often go to those things, and maybe they don't get the opportunity, maybe they don't put themselves out there. So I thought that this would be a cool platform to let people that that I'm close with to share their insights and their thoughts and maybe help people learn from other people. But it's not supposed to be about me. So sometimes I share my thoughts, but I don't want it to make it about me. But I feel like for me, I love doing these. So I'll talk about what this is. I love doing these. I feel like I learn a lot. I get a lot of nuggets. And I got a lot of feedback from people saying that they love listening to this. And so I think that that's cool.
Yeah.
And I say a lot of people, I know I have like 50 subscribers on here, but the amount of views that I've gotten and people reaching out to me was surprising, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
I'm enjoying it. I'm learning a lot from people, and I'm learning a lot about editing and social media and posting all this stuff. So it's been a cool experience so far. So I'm going to continue to try to do this.
Yeah, that's great. You're following your warmth.
Yes. So, all right. Thank you for doing this, Laura. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure catching up with you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
It's been great. All right. Bye-bye.